All right. Well, this is not a beard banter. This is a beard dash beard because we're missing Tom in the middle for the beard dash none dash beard. But it kind of offshoots on what we talked about in our last beard banter. And so I asked Jason to jump on with me. And what we wanted to talk about is Write a Boom coming up in 2025. And what I figured there's no better way to do it. Jason, if you just want to kick us off, we'll talk about how's it structured, and then we'll go really quickly into what we're thinking on this.
Yeah, I mean, I'll openly admit that my initial plan was to not attend again. I will be. I mean, I've told Andrew that, and I've been pretty frank about it because of. I had a lot of trouble last year answering the question, who is the target audience of this conference, right? It landed on too technical for the business users and not technical enough for the technical users, right? So it was in this weird spot. So Andrew has done a fair job, I think, of remedying that. Like it looks like the technical track definitely seems to have gotten a lot more technical.
And it's split, right? Like for me, one of my favorite conferences goes back way back, but it was at Continuum. And I'm not, praising all the things Continuum, but I am saying that they split it into a business and a technical track. Yeah. And I could very clearly go expose myself to a deeper and more technical conversation, or expose myself to a more business oriented and sales function conversation. So I really like that because it allows you to try to fit both best of both worlds. But really quickly, we'll run through what the track looks like. And you had some thoughts that maybe we'll uncover around what will come up on it. So first one is Bo Bullock. Like, gosh, if you don't know him, that is a slam dunk person to be teaching a slam dunk topic, right? M365 workshop talking about AADJ or Entra ID now, data governance, threat protection, adding things, using those features that exist. Like, fantastic. Love it. One of the things I'll immediately call out too is Bo Bullock does not work for Enforcer, but it is sponsored by Enforcer. Right. And I love that melding of using your brand, putting it there, and then getting that and having real experts come in and absolutely teach, which means maybe less Matt, and more Bo Bullocks out there.
And these seem to be like almost pre-day afternoon kind of sessions looking at them, right? Because it looks like the actual event doesn't actually kick off till Thursday, right? So it's almost like they had more stuff they wanted to cover, so they threw a couple extra sessions in on Wednesday.
Yeah, I love it. And I think it's a good topic. I think there's so much of our base that's going to be very, very identity centric and SaaS extensible in the next 10 years. So
maybe this addresses some of the complaint that I was kind of making before we started here, right? Because the second one here may bridge some of that gap I was talking about.
Yeah, the fundamentals, right?
Yeah,
we were talking about, is this too technical? And I think, to my answer was maybe, but also immersion is valuable, right? And putting people in something well beyond themselves. But I do think, to your point, this bridges that. And John Strand does such a good job.
I've actually sat through this.
He's amazing.
I sat through this class.
I've done, I think, twice
quite
now.
Good.
Doing it. Yeah. It's really good. And it's very, it's fun, and it's going to be, he's fun, and he's a great teacher, great dude. So very experienced. It's going to be awesome. Also, Chris, like another slam dunk, right? Threat hunting workshop. Now, to your point, what are your thoughts on this? Because we talked about threat hunting.
This one, I mean, the problem here is that there's a learning cliff to start doing this, right? And it depends on if John has enough time to get through the core fundamentals, right? Like one of the things I think that's going to have to happen here, because most of the tech track seems to be workshops, right? So it's like Andrew needs to do a good job of calling out what do we need? Like people, I presume, are going to need to bring laptops. Are they going to need to be capable of running a VM
Power,
or Docker,
internet,
or like
good internet?
What kind of things are going to be there, right? And if there's prerequisites, like one of the things CodeMesh does relatively well is they list all the prerequisites you need, and they tell you to download them before you get there, because I can tell you from experience that, if this requires a 20 gig Docker image
personally,
you will crush conference Wi-Fi with 100 people trying to download.
I apologize to anybody that's ever been to one of my conferences where I've done that to you. That is true story. So Andrew, if you're listening on this one, maybe grab one of those resources that you'll need. But I will say that a lot of these workshops and experience, the way you've seen them presented, is kind of like follow along, but also I'm going to be doing it and showing. Then they have the keynote, right, on B2B solutions. Isn't selling, it's buying them. It's all the complexities, decision complexity. From Brent Adamson. And then hands-on for tech, stop chasing shadows, actively hunt threats with this EDR. So it's going to be digging into EDR logs or sim logs, things like that, by Blockworks and Lima Charlie getting involved. So this is the first time we actually do have somebody that's sponsoring being involved, I think, from these. But that said, they are a tool set that one would use to be immersed in that. So I think it makes sense and lines up, right?
If they do well, they will spend, of this 2 hours, an hour and a half of it talking about generically how to hunt threats and use your ER tool, right? And then they'll spend the last half hour specifically on theirs.
And that goes back even to this, watching someone take tools and look at things and help you understand the complexities of the why is this so hard problem sometimes, I think, which is fantastic, but also give you the immersion of you should be doing this.
Yeah.
And then this giving an example of that. So
the problem with the EDR tools in particular is that there isn't really that much commonality between them, right? Like they all do it, they all show the same information in a slightly different way, right? So that'll probably be the most interesting one to see how much takeaway there actually is there.
I think there is at least a kinesthetic understanding of what one's doing, maybe in a different format that has some translative value. But either way. All right, red teaming your security stack. Like this might matter. And depending on how they approach it, could be really cool. Like, what is my stack going to pick up? What am I going to be alerted upon? Like that kind of stuff, right?
You missed it last week because you showed up a little bit late, but in Dave Kennedy's keynote at GurCon.
Calling me out like that, bro. It's cool. No, I don't care. It doesn't even hurt my feelings. You're not wrong.
He called out that if he had to hire one security guy on his team, it'd be a red teamer, right? Like an internal threat hunting guy, right? So because he said he would actually disallow that user to be able to be invited to meetings. Like you just would not be able to schedule this person to a meeting. And he said that is so huge because if all they do is all day sit there and try to pop your stuff internally, they're going to find a lot of stuff for you to remediate. 100%. And eventually, over time you get way better.
There's an answer to reason. And I'm not, like I said, I've said this many times before, I am not an amazing hacker. I learn at the script kiddie level at best, probably, and a broad understanding of a lot of things. But the point is like having the ability to start understanding things more from that side of it, from the attacking side of it, from the playing offense in football, from that analog, right, is extremely important to understand how to play defense. And so I think any of this type of stuff is really valuable, just understanding it even 3% or 4%. I used to tell my technicians that tech and security is often like this 10 by 10 square or 100 by 100 square, set of squares, and that you can know 3 or 4 of them. But if you were way out here where you didn't have anything, you knew nothing about that at all. You had no contextual awareness. If you didn't even have a dot or a light, like I put it back to like fog of war from anyways. So
right. Like that's 100%, right? Like that is fog of war.
So, all right, Blue Team Foundation's fantastic, right? Now we get into, and I like what they're building, right? If you think about it, it's kind of like, here's all the red team view, now go protect it. So I'm actually a big fan of that order from that perspective. And it's, all
it looks like he's wrapping on Friday pretty early.
Yeah, it looks like it, at least in this track, potentially. Maybe that's so that they can cross over tracks. I haven't really dug into it.
Closing remarks at like 11 on Friday.
Nice. You could actually fly out Friday and not have Saturday also somewhat burned.
Yeah.
Not be burned Friday flying out.
I'll take that. Right. Like, because most of us, like probably me included, I'll fly out Tuesday night. Right. Like, and then, being able to come home Friday morning or Friday early afternoon, I think I can probably get a flight back at a reasonable time, even come to the East Coast.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So that's pretty much it for the tech track. And I think it's, gosh, man, your mind's going to be exploding by the end of that. I think be prepared for a heavy day on your laptop, I would wager. I don't know. Maybe they'll clarify.
And I would expect, right, like it's definitely not going to be the case that you're going to be able to follow along and keep up with everything, right? If you've not done this before, like do not let that dissuade you if you're going to do it, because you will learn. You just may not understand. I liken it to math, right? So you would learn a concept in math, and I have a hard time when I learn the new math concepts when I've gone through math classes.
Sure.
But what would happen is we would move on to the next module that would build on the former thing, and suddenly it made sense, right? Like that thing I struggled with for, 2 weeks, like trying to figure out like, okay, why are we doing this? We'd go to the next step. And as soon as I could see the practical application of that, then it suddenly just clicked into place immediately. So I think there's benefit, even if you don't completely understand everything going on, seeing it, because at some point or another, you'll come across something and it'll go click and you'll go, oh man, that thing I watched a while ago is totally relevant. And it records these, you could potentially go back and watch them.
I would add to that. So I'm literally wrestling with this and trying to create conference I'm doing later with PAX 8, where we're trying to do very immersive things, right? You've heard some of that setup and what we're talking about to try to solve this, like, need to be fully immersed in touching the tech, but also then getting lost. Like, one of the challenges I've had is if maybe I'm slower on a keyboard and I'm 4 or 5 steps behind and they're way out there, I might lose context of why I'm even failing what I'm failing. I don't want to interrupt the class to ask a question. They maybe don't have enough support there, the structures of that. So it's a really balancing act of that show versus ask you to do. But what they're trying to do is serve those learners like me that learn by touching my hands on the keyboard. That's how I understand things. It's the only way I understand things. Error, success is usually the way I learn things, as you've seen.
That could be the title of last week.
That is the title of last week. Both of us. Oh, I digress. All right.
Yeah.
So this is the other side of the business track, which I love that they've separated. I know it's hard to balance. And even when we've separated it before in some of our conferences, people are like, well, I want to attend both. And that's going to be the challenge too of doing separation. The times, right? You have to bounce back and forth and lose some thematic track.
Meanwhile, you and I were at GERCon last week, where at any given time there were 3 talks going on. We do MSP GeekCon, where at any given point there's 4 talks going on, and I go to Code Mash, where at any given point I think there's like 20 talks going on.
Okay, you win. No, you're not. Right. Matt Lee lost 1 Matt point right here to Jason Slagle. Just so y'all know, like, that's 100% accurate. You got it.
Just do what you need to do, right? It's like I want more conferences that give me choices.
Yeah, and I like this track. So leadership skills on and off the battlefield. Presented by Michael Crean. If you don't know Michael, he's love you, buddy. Love you. Just an amazing human. He helped our beard shave so much throughout that. He's just a great dude. In fact, he shaved without much fanfare at the very end, without like anybody watching. It was just awesome. But it'll be good. I think the discussion about leadership, and really leadership when you start thinking about it, and I'm actually teaching a class on this tomorrow. When you think about what is governance, when we talk about what is governance, governance is the will of a company. It's the will of an entity in my mind. Well, leadership then is directly correlative to governance in that discussion. So I won't get off on a tangent, but I do think it starts well with leadership, masterclass and M&A. So then we're talking about buying.
Okay. So super interesting here will be if he takes this to a security standpoint, right? Like, if this is just a masterclass on M&A, we have. Well, I mean, if this is just a masterclass on M&A, you can get that anywhere, right? Like, but like if you can, if you do a masterclass on M&A with a security focused, like, hey, these are the security.
How do I integrate? What's my timeline? What are the security decisions? What are our risk decisions? How do we manage moving some risk register that didn't exist potentially in this acquisition? Like, boom. Those are the things I'd love to hear in an M&A where you can speak towards saying, how can I still be profitable when I know I have $1 million worth of integration work to do on these 5 acquisitions? Like, when I have to literally take man hours or human hours and do these things to deprecate these systems, retire them, move them, smoke test or otherwise, right? Slagle, like we talked about that, let alone integrating, moving systems, contracts, managing contracts of those acquisitions. There's so much in there around security.
I mean, I wonder how many MSPs as part of the due diligence project or process when they're acquiring consider the risk posed by the company they're acquiring. Because I'm guessing they all look at financials and they all look at, whether they use.
I got mansplained too about how I didn't understand business when I brought that up right before our mass ransomware. So ask me how I know. Totally with you on that.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's probably not high on most people's radars.
And Mike can get fairly spicy, so this might be pretty good from that perspective. Business track, solutions expo, so getting them through to see the tools and the services. I think that's probably a good way to show it because you don't really see solutions expo on the non-business track, Slagle.
I presume there's times when it's just open.
Maybe. Interesting. This one's specifically called out. And then Brent's making a keynote over here. So that's
the same. It's the same keynote.
Yeah.
And actually, I mean, having Red Challenger sale, I think that there are lessons to be learned there on both sides, right? Because it's all about how to explain things in ways that, like, you just accept, like, you have to understand that somebody that's buying something from you, and I think we get this wrong so much in this industry, and we had multiple conversations about this last week. They're buying from you because they don't know what to buy, and you're the expert, right? So, like, stop caving to them and just be the expert. And the Challenger sale is 100% about that.
Bro,
like, challenge the customer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, yes. If my doctor's like, Matt, do you think we should tackle the blood pressure, the high weight, maybe the poor decisions? And I don't know that I'd feel as good as if she just said, Matt, you need to do this. You're going to die, bro. Okay. Yeah, doc, I'm on it. More fiber. Got it. No problem. So I love it. I do love it. And I think we follow Challenger Sale quite a bit in our own organization. And then ZB is coming over talking about a panel, it looks like, of MSPs.
So, I like me some ZB, but this is going to be interesting because it has the chance to go completely off the rails, because if there's anyone at this point selling MDR or EDR as a thing that you can buy or not buy, they're doing it wrong.
You're doing it wrong.
Yeah, customers don't care about your MDR, EDR. So, creating pain 100%. Points, crafting value propositions, and overcoming objections, like for AV.
Yeah, I'm hoping that's extended beyond that. And I know ZB is pretty smart.
Yeah, so I like ZB a lot. So
I'm imagining it's beyond that. Yeah. I think the MDR, EDR crossover probably for people really speaks towards, and I don't know if I want to get to it. I'll try to save it. I might save something spicy for the end of this, y'all. We've got about 14 minutes. So if y'all want to hang on that long, it could get a little wild at the end here, just from a post that came up earlier that I want to speak towards, but didn't.
Kyle's.
Maybe. Let's say allegedly. Let's say allegedly. I have some thoughts about it. Let's just say. All right. Business track period. Again, back in the network sessions. And I think the vendors appreciate that, right? It goes back to what we talked about the other day. So like there has to be an ROI, and I think there needs to be that exposure of time for people to have those conversations.
And interestingly enough, right, like we just came from a conference where, to my knowledge, there weren't really a whole lot of DMs there, right? So like you don't necessarily need the tech people if that's who is going to be there going.
Well, and I just nerded out with the people in the booth, right? Like that was always sat there with what's his name, Garrity, and talked about C2s being hosted by a lot of people. I don't know, maybe some stuff coming, but we talked about very interesting things. So I like the tech booths were very techy for the tech people, and I wonder if maybe that's an improvement area. I wonder if there's maybe just the ability for any vendor that's there that you're already doing business with or not, for you to go ask very nerdy, very challenging questions when you're on the tech side. And that would give the ability to maybe knock out some of that in a really fast ad hoc fashion. So maybe just a thought there, side tangent. Okay, automation as a sales wedge, right? Like talking about using automation. I think what that might be speaking towards, and I won't get into it because I won't dig too much in it, but is really this understanding of commoditization and automation are all becoming part of how we continue to move this world forward at scale, especially as we start seeing adoption of the same types of tools and tech out there. But yeah, I'm assuming that's what they're going to tackle. Thoughts?
Yeah, that'll be that is a very unlikely pair for me to ever see on stage. So I actually,
Aaron's brilliant and Gary's brilliant in his own right. So this could be very fun.
Watch that just to see those two interact.
Well, I see where your brain went. You're not wrong. It's going to be awesome, though. All right. And then Joe Levy, Sophos, is talking about express executive buyers with this workshop, how to tell your sales pitch for C-suite. Storytelling, sure. Yep, 100%. Craft compelling data-driven presentations sometimes. And then anticipate and address executive level concerns. Alyssa Miller talks about on stage, and if you haven't followed her, Alyssa Sachs, she's fantastic. But she talks about stage. She says, as technical and security professionals, we're told our whole lives that the language of business is risk. And then she said, horseshit. The language of business is profit, raw, unadulterated profit. And if you're a nonprofit, it's mission. But either way, the language isn't risk. In fact, when an executive takes their first role as CEO, they've taken on all the risk. In fact, they went in business to take a risk and make a profit. They are told to take risks. So I think to the point of being able to tell stories to help people overcome knowledge barriers and challenges that are there for people to explain. Like, let me explain to you why we need to turn off IPv6. No, IPv6, not IPv4. Okay, hold on. Understand that like that, how much breadth of knowledge has to be there. It's much easier to tell a story, right? To get that level. So that's cool. There. What are your thoughts, man? Anything on that one?
I think that's fine. Like it's again, I have a lot of opinions on this, but like I don't want to. It's really hard to tell what's going to happen here just based on a little paragraph.
Fair. And to your point, the positive side of that would be speaking towards more this core skills of storytelling, the ability to have conversations in that way, in my opinion. Okay, are we reviewing people's beards, or are we watching a review from guys with beards? It's a combination. I guess I wasn't very specific. So dealer's choice.
Yeah, there aren't that many beards so far. At least not.
Mine's really like
beards.
strainy at the end, though. You can almost see my logos. Jason's is full and still makes it. So I'd vote for Slagle's beard if I had to vote.
Yours is longer.
It's true. I have gained some length on that one.
Yeah.
I'm here for the beards. So it looks like 2 votes for beard review, not reviewing stuff from beards. So that's fair. Maybe we should shut up and stop talking about this stuff. Building a VCISO practice. That's tough. I mean, I think that's a topic. I do like Sanomi.
That's a good topic. That topic probably deserves more than an hour, honestly, but
it does, because yes.
Yeah. If there was an opportunity to do a workshop on the business track, that is the one.
Yeah, that's fair. I would agree. And then Aaron Torres going over panel discussion on business. So really just leading a panel discussion. So it depends on who's on that panel. Yeah, that's cool. All right. So I'm good with the review aspect of this. I think it calls what we called to action and said the other day is kind of being met by a lot of this, in my opinion. I think the risk, and maybe you want to bring it up, and then I'll spend that 9 minutes being spicy now that people are here listening to be spicy.
Yeah. I mean, I think the risk is that the technical side is too technical for the technical people that you're likely to get from MSPs, right? So like, I think that but like this was a direct answer to criticisms that I think you and I both gave, and he knows our level, so he may be trying to cater to us more directly.
Yeah.
But that's okay, right? Like, and the reason I say it's okay is I've been telling people for a year that if they're an MSP and they want to learn security stuff, to go to security conferences. So just carte blanche moving some of the security conference stuff to this conference might not be the worst thing in the world.
Yeah, that's literally it. And there's not better experts than a lot of these humans involved. So
some of it looks like, though, it basically just John's training classes that they've basically formatted into a 2-hour workshop, right? So it looks more like training than it does actual topics, which is okay, I think, for the first one. I think in the future, I'd really like to see, get a Chris Roberts in there.
Oh, yeah. Well,
right? And because he can talk about, man, the talk he gave this year about combined with some of the stuff that we just talked about, like with him, that like 14 years on, he still sees the same problems. Yeah. And a lot of the messaging we had around
and Jason Street's talk on how it's the basics. Like I felt seen right there, bro.
Yeah.
Like 100%. Yeah, man, no doubt. All right. Well, I think though, at the risk of being too technical, when I first sat through the first couple of too technical things for me, it broadened my horizons in a way that helped me understand a challenge. I want to tackle something that Kyle did post today, because I think he's right in the context he's trying to make it of. You can't just automatically be a whatever this is. But in the same definition, and Kyle, I love you. So if you're watching this at some point, here's my thoughts. I think if you continue to look forward, and Sunil, you and I talked about this in a talk we gave together around how tech kind of formed, and then the security side kind of formed, and they were separate things, but there's in my opinion a convergence playing out. And this understanding that you can't turn the wrench and not be responsible for the actions you take. You can't create this landscape and say, well, I'll just let an MSSP handle this. I think there are certain understandings and aspects that there will be a level of professionalism of what services you offer. I think that there will be some degree of things that you will never do in-house, that you will not have the skills for, that you will outsource to someone that at scale delivers those things, a Black Hills, those types of things. I believe that is a truism. But to say that you can even operate an MSP and be in charge and have an admin credential to something and create and not have to worry about what you create is absolutely false, which means there has to be some degree of a convergence playing out that's driving these things. So I'm triggering Jason. So go.
A little bit, right? Like I go back to a RACI chart. You can be A, but not R.
Absolutely.
Right? So as your MSP, I can
100%. We're saying the same thing. Yeah.
And I can just push that downstream and make somebody else responsible for it. Right.
But it has to be accounted for. It has to be spoken to as a responsibility. If you don't, you're setting yourself up for failure. And that will increase over time. Today, it may be very little. In fact, there's almost no contractual things driving this for most small to mid-sized businesses.
I mean, the other side of it I'm going to punch at Ingram for a minute, which I'm sure will make your employer very happy.
Thanks for even calling them out before doing it, Slagle. Like that, I get my Matt point back. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks.
I attended a talk last year at Cloud Summit where Ingram basically said, we can build, pick, and configure your security stack. And we can do all of those things. And then you can sell security, and you don't have to learn any of this. You don't have to do anything, right? Like, the problem is that while, yes, 100% you can push this stuff downstream, and you can and should, as most MSPs, hire an MSSP to take care of some of these things for your clients that need it, because not every client needs it.
I'll let you keep going. Go.
You very much need to make sure there is a shared responsibility matrix, so you understand as the MSP what they're responsible for and what you are responsible for.
When that MDR vendor comes back and says, hey, you need to deal with this, we've isolated this machine, you need to, we have to actually inspect, you need to be able to deal with that and have your ability to understand what that line is. And like, I think to your point, you're really digging into what I wanted to get into, Slagle, which is the SRM component of this whole thing of our world. I don't mean MSPs. I don't mean MSSPs. I don't mean large business. I mean, in general, globally, there's a gap in the SRM componentry and understanding of our world. That is straight up. Like, we haven't spoken to these things. In the same way, a shipbuilder or a bridge builder can't say, no, bro, we don't deal with the security side of this. No, but it's in the contracts. It's part of who's accountable. And to your point, somebody's got the responsibility. It's been assigned out. It's been apportioned in the budget, hopefully.
Is MSPs, why do we make this? Why do we think we're such special flowers that we're different than the rest of the industry? Because all of this stuff we're talking about here sounds an awful like a general contractor.
It sure do be. It sure do be there, Slagle.
I hire a shipbuilder, and that shipbuilder may have 30 different subcontractors, but I have one throat to choke, right? Like, it is the general
contractor. And it's quite contractually delineated as to who's doing what and where and what the failure point looks like and how that's going to be dealt with monetarily.
And if the rest of it is their thing, right? Like, so it doesn't matter to the end user of that general. It didn't matter to me when my general contractor here that was working on this building had a subcontractor that was a turd. I fired the general.
Yeah,
right. Like
100%.
It's the same thing, right? Like,
and probably sue and let that be sorted out by all the sub-defendants on that definition.
Right.
Like, that's what their contracts are for.
It's so to Kyle's point, right? While I do agree, I very much agree that you don't have to do everything, and you shouldn't do everything. You are in the end on the hook for whatever you are contractually providing.
And if you haven't delineated, and this is where this gets hard, this is why every other professional organization has a barrier to entry of being a professional in this organization, is because you have to have a certain amount of contextual awareness of what is there in order to speak to those things effectively of what you can and cannot do. I'll make it more simple. I say people have 3 buckets. This is probably stolen from something else, so don't take this as Matt's ideas. But you have what you know, you have what you don't know, and you have what you don't know you don't know. What you know is easy because you know it, at least to the level of Dunning-Kruger that you think you know it, right? What you don't know, you've figured out because you've stubbed your toe on it by something you knew. You're like, shit, this doesn't work in this context. I need to learn about this. And then there's what you don't know, which you can't learn until you just get hit in the face with it. And the challenge is that there's so much in that third bucket for most MSPs when it comes to what actually needs to happen in our world as we continue to change, that it's really hard to get you to understand it without hitting you in the face with it. All right. Anyways, good.
That's it. I think we're probably close to time.
I'm out. It was the 30 minutes I wanted to do. Okay. Appreciate y'all for hanging in here and chatting. It looks like we've got Lanyap IT in, Andrew Kaiser, love you, buddy, Steve Taylor, another one with great LinkedIn security settings, so I love you even more because I can't see who you are, so thank you. And then Steve Taylor asking about a Verizon outage, which I'm not read in on, so I'm not sure. And then actually real quick, Lanyap said, as a young MSP, you know how much I trust you? I didn't even read this. Like, I must really trust you for some reason. It's the Lanyap in there. All right. As a young MSP, I get annoyed when people say, oh, you aren't doing X, Y, or Z. Why are you even trying? Oh, Jesus, man, you're going to pull me over time. Okay, I sat in a talk by George Comita. I'm going to bring him on for my next Beard Banter if I can. And he talked about it. He's an anthropologist, and also I think he's in psychology as well. And he speaks towards the shame cycle created for people in this world by saying, I can't believe you don't know this. I can't believe you're not doing this. We need to stop that. We need to speak towards understanding of questioning or understanding of teaching or elevating. And we've got to stop shaming our tribesmen that are involved in this. So I'll end on that. That's a perfect one. Jason, anything to end with?
No, I mean, I 100% agree there, right? It's like, just be, if you don't have expertise there, you just need to own it, right? And you basically need to make sure contractually you're only on the hook for what you actually are doing and what you're doing, and like make partnerships for the other things or get rid of it. Like,
there's still money to be made in partnership, boys and girls. Ask me how I know.